Your approach to eyesight improvement is all wrong. And I know this because my approach to eyesight improvement has been all wrong. And I've been doing it for years now. And I'm just realizing, because I was like, something is missing. Why is it that back when Dr. Bates in the 1900s, so if you don't know Dr. Bates, he's basically an ophthalmologist. Okay, so he wasn't just an optometrist who measures your eyesight. He would actually do surgery, and he did different experiments to figure out what exactly causes your sight to go out of focus. And he developed a method that helped thousands of people, thousands of school children as well, to improve their eyesight. And it's like they were getting results so quickly. Some of them with like really bad problems with their eyes, or with their way of seeing. Because he said that it was a mental strain. The issue, the focus was on your mental state. Okay, fast forward to 2025, right? And I think about like courses I've done, I think about coaches that I've worked with, and I feel like the emphasis has always been on clarity. Even when they tell you, it doesn't matter if it's clear or not, don't worry about it. The blur is your friend. But then they hold up an eye chart and they're like, all right, you do your practice. How does a chart look? And I get it. You need some type of feedback to figure out whether or not what you're doing is working. And clarity is one of many indicators of whether or not what you're doing is working. But the emphasis should absolutely not be on clarity, because then you get in my position where I've been doing this for years, and you start getting clarity, the clarity is extending, but you're not breathing properly. Your eyes, your attention is not moving freely, and you can feel that your eyes feel very tense and strained. You can still feel that, even if you're getting more of this clarity. So to me, that indicates the clarity is one indicator as to whether or not what you're doing is working, but it is not the absolute indicator. And I would tell most people, do not focus on clarity as an indicator as to whether or not what you're doing is working. When you do different practices, focus on sensations. Focus on, are you breathing freely? Now, if you get like this huge sigh of relief while you're doing a practice, while you're looking out into the distance or while you're looking at things in the foreground, that would indicate that things are right. You're doing things correctly. That's one indicator of many, right? You don't need to just worry about whether or not you can see clearly. I think that feeling of freeness, that feeling of like inhaling and getting all of that breath, to me, that is a stronger indicator. Everyone's going to be different. But I feel a lot of what is not being talked about is being able to monitor those sensations in your body. That's the most important part, not just seeing clearly or not. That's not enough. So how do you do it? Do some of the practices. Maybe I'll do a video on practices later, but literally just Google Dr. Bates methods, different methods, and do do the swinging, practice. I don't really know how to explain practicing central fixation, but seeing one thing at a time. So go outside and just look at colors. Just let your gaze move from one color to the other. Making sure that you're looking further out into the distance, noticing things moving. There's so many different practices. Go do one of these things, and then while you're doing it, notice how you feel. Are you breathing easier? Is your gaze moving around? Is your attention moving, or is it getting stuck on things? And I'll have to go more in depth on that later. But getting stuck is essentially the idea of you want to see it clearly. So your eyes, your gaze, it sticks on it. And then you just start doing the practice on that one thing. Like, let's say one of the practices is tracing around objects. Some people do this practice. Okay, you trace around an object, and the idea with tracing is you're looking at one thing at a time, right? Because when you trace something, you can only look at one point at a time. So let's say you're tracing around an object, and you notice that as you're doing this, you're only tracing around one object, and it's because you want to see that one object clearly, right? Instead of moving your gaze around everything, okay? Or maybe your attention is stuck out in the distance because you're convinced the only way I'm going to see clearly is I need to look out, if you're myopic, where you can only see things clearly that are close to you, but not far away. So you think, okay, I'm going to put all my attention out into the distance. And then you ignore all of the things in the foreground, right? That's a block. That's not freeing. That's not free movement. Free movement should be, you can look anywhere. You can look all around your room. You can look out the window. You can look from one person to another, and you're just looking at things that you are interested in. So put what your attention should be on should not be whether or not I see this thing clearly. Don't care. Don't focus on that. What do I find interesting? You look out the window. Okay, let me see. Maybe I can see if there's people walking down on the street. So I live in a high-rise building. So I like to look down at the little cars moving on the street because they're so tiny and cute. And, okay, can I see any people walking around? Are there any animals out there? What type of cars do I see? What type of colors do I see? Are there any type of signs? Just be like a child, be engaged and curious. Pretend that you're an alien on this planet. This is the first time you've been here. Or you're a newborn child. Have you ever seen the way a child looks at the world? I mean, they're just so enamored with everything. Everything is so interesting. Looking at the grass, looking at the blades of grass, looking far off into the distance, and wow, look at the different shapes of these buildings. Isn't that so interesting? Or, look at how these buildings are this color, but these other buildings are a different color. Just get more engaged, because making this kind of a mechanical practice is not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. You have to actually be engaged with what you're looking at. You can't look at something and want something from it, right? Like you're looking because I want it to be clear. That's why I'm looking. No. That's wrong. Look at it because you're curious and you're interested. That's when this whole idea of whether or not it's clear will fall away. A more extreme example, pretend that this is your eyesight. You will never have clear eyesight, okay? And just accept it. And just look off and say, okay, this is just how my eyesight is. If this was just how your eyesight was, what things would you be interested in? Or let's say you didn't even know about the concept of clear vision, and you're looking off into the distance. What things would you find interesting or engaging? Maybe different shapes, different colors, moving objects. You would focus on things that are moving. You wouldn't just focus on clarity, whether it's clear or not. And you're going to keep going back to whether or not it's clear. That's going to happen. It's normal. It's just important when that happens, notice it and notice how it's affecting your breath. Are you doing more shallow breathing? Do you not feel as free? Does your gaze start to lock onto things because you're waiting for it to clear? That's usually what happens. You look at something and your attention just starts to lock on it. You're looking around it, but your attention is still locked on it. And there's none of this feeling of freedom that you can move and look at anything. You need to get back the feeling that you can move at anything. Who cares? You don't need to go around an entire object. You can go from one object and just go straight through it to another object, right? And that's it. Just focus on breath, focus on everything, on your breath, on just the way you feel. For me, it's mostly the way my eyes feel and the way my breath is. But just notice different things, maybe you start staring, maybe you don't blink as much, just start, what? I say spend the first, if you're just starting this for the first time or you haven't ever done it before, just spend like a week, 2 weeks, give yourself plenty of time to just focus on sensations. Don't care about clarity, who cares? Let that come later. Focus on sensations. How am I feeling right now? Am I breathing? Am I blinking? Am I allowing my attention to move freely, or am I locking it onto things? And as you allow it to be more free, you're going to feel a loosening. It's going to loosen, and then you feel this. Then you get this clarity that comes with that loosening. But allow the clarity to come as it needs to, because this process is an easing process. It's not like overnight, it's clear. It's like you have these tight muscles and they need to gradually release. And sometimes they just release and that they tighten because there's a war going on mentally. There's a mental war. So we're focusing on the mental aspect, which is just when you focus on your breathing, you're aware of your mental state. Something mentally is causing you to tense up. So just notice that tension. Do different practices to help you ease and relax. You can do palming, right? Do some palming, and you'll get this feeling of ease and relaxation. And you breathe when you're not trying to see because you just see darkness, right? And you just feel this feeling. And you breathe that feeling. This is the feeling you need to have when your eyes are open. right? So you do different practices as well while your eyes are opening, and it will start to clear up. But don't worry about that. I feel like that's what I've been doing wrong. Because even though I know that's not what I'm supposed to focus on, you still keep coming back to that over and over and again. So give yourself a different measurement to come back to when you start noticing, oh, I'm worried about whether or not it's clear. And if the clarity comes, don't hold on to it. Don't hold on to it. That's trying, that's controlling. And we need to let go of this control. Your eyes are trying to move around based on your mental state, right? And your eyes move in this natural, organic way. But your mental state and the way you're thinking is interfering with them. It's like, imagine a ball moving like this, right? And you're holding it and it's trying to move and it can't move. That's what's happening right now. So you have to gradually release the grip. Okay? And you do that by being aware of your breath, doing practices that keep your mind at ease. You're not trying. It's clear? Okay. Let it be clear. Let it go away. It clears again. Let it be clear. Let it go away. You hold on to it. It's like, when someone's trying too hard, in a relationship, somebody's trying too hard and the other person loses interest because they're like, oh, this person's like acting so desperate. They're trying so hard, right? Don't try so hard. Let it go. Let it come. Let it go. And then eventually it will come back and it will come longer and longer and longer. But you need to allow this process to be an easing process. Slowly, slowly. Okay? Don't worry about 3 months, 6 months, a year. Don't think about these time frames. That was also my mistake because you have a time frame and you're thinking, oh, I need to do all of this, and it puts too much pressure on yourself. Just allow it to happen. And that's it. I highly recommend, if you watched this video without palming, I highly recommend you watch it again, but palm this time and get that feeling of ease. I should have said that at the beginning of the video. Every video that I do, I prefer if you do it, you just listen to it while you're palming, if you can. Obviously if you're walking outside, please don't palm. If you're exercising, please don't palm. Someone told me a story, they were on the treadmill and they were palming and fell down. I was like, oh my gosh, please do not palm on the treadmill. No, don't palm. When it's safe, you can palm, okay? If you're sitting down at a desk, you're not driving, do a little bit of palming, right? Or if you're somewhere where it's kind of embarrassing to palm, I don't know why you care about other people. They don't care about you, but you can just close your eyes, okay? It's not as effective as palming, but it's close. So, yeah. Until the next one.